our cousins, our great uncles, our neighbors, including your grandfather's best friend. Unbeknownst to us that we know how to live life, these are the individuals who sacrificed for their country have enabled us to live as we do. If you think about it again, these individuals went to our schools, the same schools as we did, played on our streets, played our games. They grew up where we grew up, where our children grew up, where our grandchildren are growing up. These individuals and their families have paid a cost for our American democracy. Today, our guest speaker, Mr. Larry Garner, is a member of the Benton County Gold Star family. A retired Navy veteran himself, Mr. Garner will share information about his uncles, the Garner brothers who served during World War II. 3 of the 4 brothers who served lost their lives while defending their country. Please give a warm welcome to Mr. Larry Garner.
Thank you, Deb. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
My name's Larry Garner. Both of my parents grew up here in Los Animas. Their families were here for decades and slowly moved other places. But this is about the Garners of Los Animas, Colorado, back in the day when they were when those families were both getting started here, and especially about the Garners' loss of 3 sons in World War II. At the time war broke out, the Garner family was living south of Los Animas, just about a mile north of the Woodrow School, and was just yards away from Rule Creek, where my dad, Cecil Garner, used to love to go fishing. The place was called the Donovan Place. The family was apparently still living at the Donovan Place when Dan, Virgil, and Alva joined the military, as there are pictures of all 3 in uniform at that place. The Garner siblings included daughters Isla, Ruth, Pearl, and Alice, along with sons Dan, Virgil, Roy, Alva, and Cecil. Virgil was drafted and enlisted in the Army in September of 41, and then Dan joined the Army in October of 1941. Virgil stayed stateside in Texas, working in vehicle ordnance until he was sent to England in February of 1944. Then in December of 44, he was transferred to the infantry and sent to Belgium. In about 1942, the family moved further south to what was known as the Starks Place. They were only there about a year or so and then moved back to the Massey Place, another place close to the Woodrow School. While at that place, Roy was still at home helping on the farm until he was drafted in June of 1944. His parents attempted to keep him at home because he was needed on the farm, but their request was denied. Dan trained in California and Arizona, and then served in a few other states until being sent overseas in late 1944. Clark and Fanny were doing fairly well in 44. For the first time in their lives, they'd accumulated a little money and a good herd of cows. They'd already bought their place out by the Red Rock School and were planning to move when they got the crops harvested at the Massey Place. But my grandpa Clark died unexpectedly in September of 1944 of a ruptured ulcer. Another Garner family member I never got to meet. My Aunt Pearl and Uncle Tom Neal were living in town, with Tom working as a janitor at the courthouse. They moved out and got the crops in and moved Grandma into town. My Aunt Isla had obtained an emergency teaching certificate and was teaching at the Red Rock School. And she had my Aunt Alice with her. Ruth got married that year and also had a teaching certificate and was teaching in a different school further to the south. Although the place Grandma and Grandpa had bought was close to Red Rock School, Isla and Alice were staying in the basement of the school because it's too hard to carry all the books for all the different grades back and forth every day because there was a lot of snow on the ground. Alice was only 12. She was given the task of doing the laundry at the house and was told to make a big fire in the stove to help dry the clothes. She did that, not knowing that the flue was blocked. They were awakened in the middle of the night by neighbors and watched the house burn. Grandma later sold the land for about what they had paid for the whole thing. Grandma wasn't having a great time of things in this stretch of time. Grandma never spent much time in a town and certainly never lived in one and never worked outside of her home. She'd never driven a car, so all this was brand new to her. It was a huge adjustment. In town, she obtained work at the laundry at the hospital and began her new life. For a very short time, she still had Virgil and Roy among the living. And of course, my dad Cecil and my Aunt Alice at home. Alice had a friend who had also lost her dad. They used to walk to the cemetery and do their homework from their dad's graves. The Garner boys who went off to war. We'll start with Alva Lewis Garner. He was born in September 1921 near Spearman, Texas, to Clark D. and Fanny Garner. In November 1927, he moved with his family to Bent County, Colorado. Alva enlisted in August of 1942, shortly after his 18th birthday, and was sent to the Great Lakes Naval Training Station in Illinois for training. He joined the Navy, hoping to be able to continue working on aircraft, as he was trained in sheet metal work and engine mechanics and was working for Continental Airlines in Denver. But instead of a carrier, he was assigned to a submarine. The USS Pickerel, SS-177, and moved to the Pacific. It is believed that he was stationed in Hawaii. He was on the Pickerel as a third-class electrician's mate when it was reported missing off of northern Honshu, Japan on April 3rd, 1943. No trace has ever been found of the ship or any of the crew of 70 men. Due to security issues and red tape, his official date of death is listed as 1945, after he's declared dead because he'd been missing 2 years. Alva was the first of Clark and Fanny Garner's sons to lose his life in service to their country. He shares a memorial headstone with his brothers Roy and Virgil in this very cemetery. Virgil Enos Garner was born on January 2nd, 1920 in Oklahoma. Virgil had 2 older sisters, 1 older brother, 3 younger brothers, and 2 younger sisters. By 1940, Virgil had completed 8 years of education. He was still living at home, working as a farmhand. He was drafted into the Army in September of 1941. He became a private first class in Company F, 2nd Battalion, 358th Infantry Regiment, 90th Infantry Division. Virgil in the 90th ID, or Infantry Division, arrived in England in April 1944 and immediately began training for the invasion of France. The 90th Infantry Division was in action in Normandy the day after D-Day. It fought through Normandy and across France as part of General Patton's Third Army. Virgil's father, Clark Garner, died in September of 1944. By that time, Alva had been missing for a year and a half, and 3 of his other sons were in the service. The 78th Infantry Division arrived in France in November of 44 and faced the Germans across the Siegfried Line during the winter of 44 and 45. When the Germans attacked through the Ardennes in December of 1944, Virgil's unit was sent to hold back their advance. By January 5th, it started offensive operations, turning the Germans back. On January 12, 1945, the 90th Infantry Division had successfully completed a 3-day engagement near Wiltz, Luxembourg, wiping out the German units they had faced. The 90th ID would suffer more than 19,000 casualties from D-Day on Utah Beach to the end of the war, fighting in Germany. PFC Virgil Garner was killed in action the very next day, January 13th, 1945, at the age of 25. Virgil was the second Garner brother to die in World War II, but not by much. He was originally interred at the Henri Chapel Cemetery, but his body was later brought back to Los Animas, and his buried in the Bent County, Los Animas Cemetery. Shares a memorial headstone with his brothers Alva and Roy. Roy Lee Garner was born on 5 February 1926 in Turney Township, Texas County, Oklahoma, to Clark and Fanny Garner. Roy was drafted into the U.S. Army in June of 1944 at the age of 18. He served as a private in Company G, 2nd Battalion, 310th Infantry Regiment, 78th Infantry Division, nicknamed Lightning. There are reports that Roy may have joined the 78th ID as a replacement. His unit crossed the River Rhine across the Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen, Germany, on March 8, 1945. The Ludendorff Bridge, also known as the Bridge at Remagen, was a bridge across the River Rhine in Germany which was captured by United States Army forces in early March 1945 during the Battle of Remagen in the closing weeks of World War II, when it was one of the few remaining bridges in the region and therefore a critical strategic point. The Battle of Remagen was an 18-day battle during the Allied invasion of Germany in World War II that lasted from March 7th to 25th, 1945, when American forces unexpectedly captured the Ludendorff Bridge over the Rhine intact. The Germans had tried to destroy it, but had not got it done yet. The crossing of the Rhine at Remagen marked a decisive moment heralding the impending collapse of Germany. Various sources credit the capture of the Ludendorff Bridge with shortening the war in Europe by weeks or even months, and reducing the number of casualties that the Allies might otherwise have incurred. As it was, American troops suffered 7,400 casualties during the taking of that bridge, including 863 men killed March 7th through the 24th. Private Garner was killed in action during this battle on March 15, 1945. He is also buried in the Bent County, Los Animas Cemetery and shares the memorial headstone with his brothers Alva and Virgil. Daniel James Garner was the only Garner brother that got back from World War II alive. Dan was born on July 11, 1918 in Texoma, Oklahoma. He was inducted into the Army in October 1941 and received basic training at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, assigned to Headquarters Battalion 745th Horse-Drawn Artillery out in the desert near Scottsdale, Arizona in August of 1942. In April of 1942, they moved to Bay Meadows Racetrack near San Mateo, California. While there in the Western Defense Command, they guarded 600 miles of shoreline. They also camped at Camp Heidel, north of San Francisco, until July of 1942, when they camped on a golf course in San Rafael, California. It was here they replaced their horses with trucks. Next move was made to Camp Roberts in September of 1943, then back to Fort Sill, Oklahoma in February of 1944, on to Camp Polk, Louisiana in September of 44, then to Camp Shanks in New York in December of 1944, and in December of 1944 they finally sailed to northern England, arriving in January of 1945. Went to France, Belgium, and then to Germany. Dan was engaged in campaigns in Rhineland and Central Europe. He left his outfit in Germany in May of 1945 when orders came from Washington, D.C. for him to be moved out of combat after his third brother had been killed. He was to be stationed in the U.S. at a location of his choice. He chose Fort Logan, Colorado, near Denver, and spent the month of August 1945 at Fort Sam Houston in Texas, awaiting assignment. He was discharged from Fort Logan in November 1945 after serving 4 years and 28 days. Dan settled near Eads, Colorado, where he married and had 3 sons. He farmed and also owned the local bowling alley. The only Garner son to return from World War II alive died July 27, 2004 at Weiss Broad Memorial Hospital in Eads and was interred in the Eads Cemetery. And that's the story of the Garner family and the Garner boys that were lost in World War II. Yeah, appreciate your attention. Thank you. I would like to say thank you to my cousin Ellen, because she provided me a whole lot of that information. And anything I got wrong is on me.
We're lucky to have 4 Garner family members here, so if you have time afterwards, you can say hi to them. They've all contributed to the story, so that's remarkable. It's amazing. In addition to honoring our brave service members, it is our obligation to show gratitude and support for our Gold Star families who lost their loved ones in defense of our country. These are why we should never forget, and there's people sitting here today that can testify to that. Let us reflect on the high cost of freedom, which they know all too well. You may not know that 2 families from Mid County, the Tuckers and the Polish families, to this day do not know the fate of their sons. And we just learned about Mr. Garner's, another Garner. So that's 3 families that we know of. The Tuckers and the Polishes were Vietnam veterans. One was a pilot in the U.S. Air Force and the other a Navy navigator. They both went to battle over the skies of Vietnam and never returned home. So these are families that have been undeniably marked by their individual sacrifices. If you look here now, we have our dedication of wreaths. We have the Army wreath, the Marines, the Navy, Air Force, Space Force, Coast Guard, Merchant Marines, and the POW, or Missing in Action. We will now have the rifle salute. By
What about us?
Left, right, face. Ready. Aim. Fire. Aim. Fire. Aim. Fire. Port. Hoot. Left, face.